The night before the party, my mother called to ask if paper plates were okay. "Mom," I said, holding my phone between my shoulder and cheek while I tied twine around tiny jars of lemonade. "We're doing this in Noah's mother's backyard. I think she has plates that cost more than my car," Mom chuckled. "Then I'll bring the good potato salad so at least folks will be too busy eating to notice what they're putting it on." I laughed, then winced because my stomach tightened, not painfully, more like a firm hand smoothing a wrinkle. 22 weeks. I was 22 years old too, which, depending on who you asked, was either so young and fun or alarmingly early. I felt somewhere between those, like I'd been handed a map with half the roads missing and told to drive. Noah's mother, Lorraine, had insisted on the party. "We should do something sweet," she'd cooed when we told her we wanted to find out the baby's sex at our next ultrasound. A reveal. "Just family and a few friends. It will be tasteful." Tasteful. That word haunted me through the rented archway of baby pink balloons she ordered and the delicate frosted cookies with our initials. There was a ribbon bar, whatever that was, and hydrangeas in thrifted mason jars that somehow still cost $50 apiece. Lorraine had smiled at me with a tenderness that was almost love and said, "Don't worry about the cost, dear. This is my grandbaby." My own family was driving in from Southfield, 2 hours and a world away from Lorraine's suburb, where the mailboxes matched and the Roses had college degrees. They were bringing coolers and folding chairs and laughter that echoed off siding. Noah kept saying it would be fine. "Mom's extra," he'd say, nuzzling my shoulder. "But she's excited. She'll behave." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this baby, this thundercloud of love building inside me, would soak the ground and make everything grow softer. The morning of the party, I woke to find a text from my sister, Jada, leaving soon. Dad insisted on bringing the karaoke machine. I told him no. He said, "Then how will I quiz the guests about Motown?" "Brace yourself." I sent back a row of crying, laughing faces and rolled out of bed. My ankles were cankles. I'd never seen them like that. I sat at the edge of the mattress and rubbed them gently, muttering, "You're doing amazing, sweeties." Noah came in from his run, hair damp, shirt clinging to his chest. He smelled like damp cotton and the backyard in June. "Hey," he said. "Today's the day." "Today's the day," I echoed, and we grinned, stupid with wonder. Lorraine's backyard looked like a magazine had thrown up in it. The archway, the pastel bunting, the cupcakes stacked in spirals. There was a table just for sparkling waters, plum, elderflower, basil, and another for tea sandwiches cut into tiny hearts. It was beautiful, I'll give her that. She'd made an effort. The whole thing made my skin itch. "Darling," she called from the patio as we came out. "I've put the ultrasound pictures in the gold frames like we discussed. Oh, and the cake arrives at noon. The bakery promised minimal dye. I told them the dye stains teeth and we want your pictures perfect." Noah kissed my temple. "She means well." I know. Lorraine came down the steps, pearls at her throat, sundress spotless. She took my hands and held them like we were rehearsing for the role of two women who loved each other. "You look radiant, Maya, positively maternal." "Thanks," I said, and tried to decide if that was a compliment. Guests came in waves. Noah's friends from college with their craft beer opinions, his cousins with matching smiles, Lorraine's bridge partners who smelled like lilacs and polite disapproval. Then my people. My dad, wearing a shirt that said Girl Dad in bold letters. Jada in cutoffs with a booty-length braid. My mom in a floral dress and sensible sandals, carrying potato salad like it was a crown jewel. My Uncle Darnell brought ribs, my Auntie Yvonne brought deviled eggs, and my Grandma Lillian brought herself, which was more than enough. Every time one of mine hugged me, I felt rooted again. Grandma Lillian cupped my face in her cool palms and said, "Look at you, baby. I never thought I'd live long enough to hold a great-grandchild." "God is generous," I cried then, real tears that dampened her knuckles. She laughed and swatted my shoulder. "Now save some of that for the baby." Lorraine fluttered around us. "Oh, how wonderful," she said, her smile bright enough to burn. "We have quite a bit of food already, but we can make space. The caterers are just, they're not going to be happy we showed up with real food?" Jada said sweetly. Lorraine blinked. "Oh, no, dear. It's just, well, the menu was planned. But we can improvise." "It's a party, not surgery," Auntie Yvonne said, and Dad snorted. which made me bury my face in Noah's shoulder to keep from doing the same. The first hour was a gentle mess. People mingled and sampled sandwiches and ribs and drank elderflower water like it had something to prove. Lorraine introduced my mother to her friends with the careful choreography of someone disarming a bomb. Mom, who'd spent 28 years working in the ICU, rearranged the seating chart and the food table, and one of the bridge partners whispered, "Competent," like it hurt her mouth to say it. I kept looking at the cake, wrapped in white bakery paper on the buffet. Inside was the secret. Noah wanted a boy, or said he did, in that reflexive way men think they should want sons. He wanted to teach him to throw a curveball even though I'd never seen him watch a baseball game. He wanted to pass down his grandfather's name. But late at night, when we lay under the cheap ceiling fan in our apartment and the baby kicked steadily against my rib like a drummer, Noah would say, "A girl would be fun, too. Little socks, tiny hair clips." He said girl, like someone said miracle. I'd wanted a daughter since I was 7 and dressed my sister's dolls in outfits made from socks. I wanted a boy too if that was the baby we'd get. I wanted whoever was on their way to me, because they were the thing I'd chosen before I had words for choosing. Lorraine tapped a glass with the stem of a spoon. "Everyone," she called. "If I could have your attention." She made a speech about family and continuity. She made a joke about how Noah couldn't keep a plant alive, so here's hoping he had better luck with a baby. People laughed. I did too, because it was easier. She ended with, "We're so thrilled to welcome this child into our family and to raise them with our values." And something wrinkled in my chest. Our values. She said it like my family didn't have any. Noah tugged my hand. We cut the cake together, the whole room leaning forward like toddlers around a fish tank. The first wedge came away, and there it was, a perfect blush of pink. Laughter. Shrieks. My mother screamed and clapped a hand over her mouth. My dad grabbed me in a hug that lifted me off my swollen feet and spun me, just once, his eyes glassy like the first day he realized I could read. Jada did a dance. Grandma Lillian said, "I knew it. The way you're carrying. That's an old wives' tale, and it's also me." Noah, sweet, bewildered Noah, pressed his forehead to mine and started crying for the second time in our 3-year relationship. He whispered, "A girl," like it was a prayer. Lorraine clapped her hands twice. "A granddaughter," she exclaimed. "Wonderful. We'll need to talk about schools, of course. And, dance classes. Ballet is non-negotiable. No offense to sports, but ballerinas have such beautiful posture. And we have to keep her out of the sun. Those are the years skin damage occurs." People started hugging again, eager to ride the wave of sweetness before the tide turned. Lorraine swept up next to my mother, her smile brittle. "You must be thrilled," she said. "A little girl. She'll be lucky to have so many influences." Mom arched an eyebrow. "Influences?" "Well," Lorraine said, "I just hope she has Noah's everything. It would be a shame if she inherited some of, the more boisterous tendencies we've seen today." "Boisterous?" Dad repeated from behind a cup of lemonade. "Yes," Lorraine said, her voice sugar-cutting. "There's how shall I put it? A certain lack of refinement. But that's all right. We'll polish her up." Time slowed. The air changed, like when you sense thunder miles away. Mom put her potato salad spoon down gently, like a scalpel. Her face was carefully blank. Dad's mouth flattened into a line I recognized from when the bank called about overdrafts when I was 16. Noah said, "Mom," warningly, a hand out as if he could push words back into her throat. Lorraine covered her faux pas with a nervous laugh. No offense intended, of course. It's just different families have different standards, and this little girl will be a Bennett. "A Bennett?" I said. The baby thumped as if she'd heard. "Not a Carter Bennett? Not mine?" Lorraine brightened, relieved to have something practical to fix. "We'll talk about hyphens later, dear. They're very now, but they can be confusing. The important thing is we give her access to the right people, the right environment. We don't want her growing up thinking karaoke is an appropriate choice for a garden party." Dad blinked. "It's not karaoke," he said. "It's trivia that uses a microphone," someone tittered. It sounded like a mouse trapped in a teacup. Lorraine leaned in, lowering her voice, but not enough. "It's all very charming," she said. "You're very emphatic people. But there's a way we do things. She'll be a little lady, she won't be running around barefoot in cutoffs announcing she's pregnant at 19. Jada's braid snapped behind her like a scorpion's tail. "I'm 21, she said coldly, "and I didn't announce anything." "No offense," Lorraine said again, "the national anthem of people who mean offense. I simply mean we don't want her to grow up." Tacky, silence. Real thick silence, like the sound had been vacuumed from the room. I heard the ice cubes settling in a glass. I felt Noah's grip tighten around my fingers. He said my name, softly. I saw my mother put a hand on my father's arm, a warning, a leash. I saw Jada bite her cheek, her eyes filming. I saw Grandma Lillian look not hurt, not surprised, just tired, like she had seen this particular show so many times in so many different theaters, and something in me hardened. The fear, the uncertainty, the carefulness I'd cultivated for months under Lorraine's well-intentioned tyranny, all of it set like plaster and became bone. I stepped forward. "Excuse me," I said, and my voice carried. People turned toward me, the way wheat turns toward the wind. I didn't shout. I didn't tremble. I was suddenly exquisitely certain of who I was. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "Truly, our daughter," the word made my mouth bloom, "is already incredibly lucky to be loved by so many people. She will be blessed to learn from all of you." I looked at Lorraine. "And she will also be blessed to have boundaries." A ripple went through the crowd, a low, surprised sound like a question. Lorraine's face drained and then flushed in pink splotches. "Maya," she said, an appeal and a warning. "You insulted my family," I said simply. "You smiled and insulted them in their faces and behind their backs. You've been doing it since I met you. Picking at my clothes, my words, my job, the way we eat, the way we celebrate. You hide it inside compliments and no offense, but it's poison just the same." "Now see here," one of her bridge friends said, clutching her pearls in solidarity. Noah stepped closer. "Mom," he said softly, "please, just listen." Lorraine's mouth opened and closed. "I didn't mean—" "I know exactly what you meant," I said. "And here's what I mean. I won't let our daughter grow up thinking that love looks like condescension. I won't teach her to mistake cruelty for taste. And I won't let her see me swallow my pride and call it peace." I could feel my heart pounding. The baby rolled like a wave. I put a hand over her and it steadied me. "So here's my announcement," I said. "It's not just that we're having a girl." I looked at Noah. His eyes were wide, startled, and then something else. Recognition, maybe. Like hearing a song you forgot you knew all the words to. "We're moving," I said. "We're moving across the country." You could hear the collective intake of breath. Lorraine made a sound like she'd been slapped. "What?" I took a breath. I hadn't planned to say it. I hadn't planned to say it today, like this, on a lawn that smelled like money and hydrangeas. But the truth had been growing in me right alongside my daughter, and there was no more room for both of them if one didn't come out. "We're moving to Seattle," I said. "In 3 weeks. I got the email yesterday. Swedish hospital. They offered me a position in the NICU." I looked at my mother, whose eyes widened and then spilled. I didn't want to jinx it before I knew for sure. I was finishing my RN to BSN at night. I'd been applying quietly for months, not because I wanted to hide from Noah, but because I needed to know it was real before I asked him to jump. He had said over and over, "I'd go anywhere with you." He had also said, "My mom needs me while Dad's in Sarasota for work." I had nodded and waited and hated myself for waiting. I turned toward him now. "Noah," I said, "I'm going."
"I want you with me."
"I want us with me, but I'm going no matter what." He was quiet for long enough that it wrote itself into my bones, the moment my life split along a fault line. Then he squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, and that hurt felt like grace. "Seattle," he said. "Okay." Lorraine made a noise like a tea kettle. No, absolutely not. "You can't take my son away," I met her eyes. "I'm not taking him anywhere. He's a grown man." "You can't expect him to leave me," she said, genuinely baffled with a child's cruelty. "After everything I've done for you, after I opened my home and my heart and your mouth," Jada muttered. Noah stepped forward, his shoulders straightening in a way I'd never seen. He looked suddenly older than 26. "Mom," he said, "I love you, but I love Maya and our daughter more." She flinched. He went on, "And I'm tired. I'm tired of defending everything to you. The way we spend money, the way we celebrate, the way we plan our lives. I know you think you're being helpful, but you're not. You're making it impossible. Lorraine looked at him as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. I planned this party, she said weakly. For your child. I appreciate that, he said gently. But a good party can't hide a bad pattern. Something crumpled in her face then, something vulnerable and real. For a second, I saw the woman who had baked him dinosaur cupcakes when he was 5, who had stitched his name in wool scarves, who had held her world together with lists and plans because that was how she survived her own mother. Then the mask snapped back into place. Seattle, she said, tasting the word like medicine. This is ridiculous. You're making a rash decision. I've been thinking about it for months, I said. That's the opposite of rash. And it's not to punish you. It's to protect us. People started to drift away, uncomfortable with being this close to a family's hinge. The bridge partners suddenly remembered a luncheon. Noah's cousins murmured and squeezed our shoulders. My Auntie Yvonne started collecting plates because that's what she did when things were hard. She gave her hands a job. Dad stood, arms folded, eyes bright with a pride he tried to swallow. Mom came to stand beside me, as if the force of her presence could be a wall against any storm. Lorraine swallowed. And what about me? She said quietly, a pleading that cut through the brittle. I won't see my granddaughter. You will, I said. If you can be kind, if you can respect our choices, if you can stop. This, she opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know how, she said so softly I almost didn't hear. I only know this. Then learn, Grandma Lillian said, and everyone jumped a little because none of us had seen her approach. She walked with her cane like it was a wand. She was small, but she filled the space with authority that came from 100 battles and the refusal to lose her softness. You're not the only woman who had to leave home and learn to love people the way they need. You make a choice every day, Lorraine. You can choose again. Lorraine stared at her. You make it sound simple. It is not, Grandma said. That's what makes it beautiful. The party did not recover, not really. People went back to eating and pretending to chat, as if the air hadn't been rearranged. Noah and I took turns wearing the smile of people who are making a decision they won't regret, but will mourn. Lorraine disappeared into the house and returned with sunglasses on, even though clouds were crawling across the sky. My family stayed where they were, a little island of warmth, offering me ribs and water and jokes like life jackets. When the sun dipped and the balloons drooped like tired swans, the last guest left. My dad loaded the karaoke machine back into the truck without ever plugging it in. Next time, he promised Noah, and Noah hugged him as if it had been his idea. Lorraine stood at the bottom of the patio steps, hands clasped. She looked at me like I might dissolve if she blinked. I'm sorry, she said. The words were clumsy on her tongue, like she had not said them often. That was awful. I didn't intend, she exhaled. I hear you. I don't like it. But I hear you. Thank you, I said. That's a start. And Seattle, she said, trying again. I suppose you'll need help packing. We've got it, I said gently. But you can help by... I searched for something that wasn't cruel. By making a list of things you want to send with us. Books you want her to have. Songs you want us to play for her. Stories you want her to know about you and Noah when he was little. And names. You can send us family names you love, and we'll read them. We might not use them, but we'll know them. She blinked, and some complicated brightness flickered across her face. I have a list, she said, the tiniest smile twitching, and I laughed, a real laugh, because of course she did. Packing was an act of faith. We boxed the life we had. 2 mismatched sofas, 6 forks, an obscene number of throw pillows, courtesy of a nesting phase that made me cry over throw blankets and home goods. Every box felt like a promise. The baby's clothes were smallest and most powerful. I folded the little onesies with the care of burial or resurrection. Noah called a moving company. He changed his address with HR. He found an apartment in Seattle that had enough light to make plants happy and a tiny balcony where I could put a chair and watch the world. We booked flights for a week before my 3rd trimester hit in earnest. I made a list of things to do in those weeks between. Doctor appointments, records to transfer, goodbye dinners to attend or avoid. Mom brought us lasagna in disposable tins and then washed the tins because she refused to throw away anything that could hold a thing again. Dad showed up with his truck and his toolkit and fixed things that did not need fixing because it made him feel like he could fix the world. Jada took me thrifting for flannels and rainy day sweaters. Grandma Lillian dug out a quilt she'd started for me when I was born and finished it with hands riddled by arthritis and history. Lorraine asked, timidly, if she could come over to help. I said yes because forgiveness is also a muscle, and we need to exercise the parts we want to keep. She arrived in jeans and sneakers, no pearls. She brought a stack of children's books and a shoebox of photographs of Noah with bangs and braces and mud on his knees. She put them on the table and said, "I'm not going to tell you how to do any of this." Then, 10 minutes later, she said, "Okay, but the bubble wrap really should go on the inside." And I laughed so hard I had to sit down. She cried into a dish towel while we wrapped mugs. "I did a terrible job," she said. "Raw." "You did your best," I said. "Sometimes that's not good enough. Sometimes it's a place to start." She nodded and pressed her palm to my stomach, asking permission without words. The baby thumped in answer. "Hello," Lorraine whispered. "I'm going to learn you properly." When we left, the backyard archway was long gone, just grass and a few stubborn hydrangea petals flattened into the earth like echoes. Noah and I stood on the curb with our bags and our baby and our terror and our hope. Lorraine hugged him and didn't let go for a long time. Then she hugged me too, holding on so tight I could feel her ribs. "You'll send me the address," she said, voice rough. "I'll mail the list. We'll FaceTime," I promised. "You can read to her." I almost said if, and I didn't, because I wanted to build the world I was saying we deserved. On the flight, Noah fell asleep with his mouth open like a kid. I watched the land unravel beneath us, a patchwork of fields, then mountains ripped like paper, then the hard glitter of the west. I pressed my hand to my stomach the whole time because the altitude made pressure rise out of me like steam, because the baby seemed to tumble with it, excited or nervous or just awake. Seattle met us with a rain that felt like a shy friend, always in the room but not demanding conversation. The apartment was smaller than the listing made it look, but the light was generous and the balcony did indeed fit a chair. We put the quilt at the end of our bed like a flag. I hung the tiny clothes and stared at them until my eyes blurred. Noah set a mug on the sill and said wonderingly, "We did it." I started work at the hospital a week later. My scrubs were tight across the belly, and one of the nurses had made me a name badge that said Maya, NICU RN, and Baby Wrangler, in glitter pen. The first time I walked into the NICU, the world went quiet and dense. I moved carefully, the way you move in a church if you believe in God, and the way you move in a museum if you believe in art. The babies were so small and so furious with their desire to live. I wanted to kneel in gratitude. I learned the layout of the city by tracing the roads between the hospital, our apartment, and the grocery store where the cashiers learned my name and my penchant for pickles at 9 p.m. Noah found a marketing job at a nonprofit that helped build gardens at public schools. He came home smelling like dirt and mint and hope. We made friends in the building, an older woman named Sumiko who fed us rice balls when my back ached, a couple down the hall who'd been together longer than we'd been alive and argued about who loved who more, a barista named Eden who always added extra foam because she said it was protection for the baby. Lorraine called every Sunday at 4 our time, 6 hers. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she tried to tell me what the baby should wear in the rain and stopped herself mid-sentence and apologized. Sometimes she was funny, wildly, dryly funny, and I realized Noah didn't get his gentleness out of nowhere. She sent me a list of names that included 2 I genuinely loved and 1 I laughed at because it was Poppet, and I appreciated the audacity. When labor came, it came like weather. We went to the hospital in the pale morning, rain blurred across the windshield. Noah squeezed my hand and said, "You are sunlight, you are the tide, you are an earthquake and a lullaby," and I told him to shut up because he was making me cry, and crying made the contractions bend into me more sharply, and he grinned because I was still me. It was long and hard and holy. I swore I would never do it again, and then I held her and wanted to do it 100 times. She was not pink or delicate at first. She was purple and furious and perfect. She hollered like she had something to say about inheritances. The nurse put her on my chest, and the world folded itself into a smaller, better shape. I counted fingers and toes and little crescents of nails. I kissed her hair, damp and matted and smelling like everyone I love. "Hello," I told her. "We are not Tacky. We are not anything you don't want to be. We are yours. We named her Lila after Grandma Lillian, with a middle name that was Lorraine's, because forgiveness, when it's true, makes room for everyone. I sent a photo to my mother and father, who made noises I had never heard before. I sent one to Jada, who nearly ordered a plane ticket without telling anyone. I sent one to Lorraine, who texted back a single imperfect heart. The first weeks were sleep-drunk and milk-sticky and stitched with fear. Every sound she made was an alarm and a symphony. I cried when the sun went down because the dark felt like a thing I needed to fight. Noah learned to wrap her like a burrito. He sang to her poorly and with an open throat. He gave me showers like gifts and brought me toast like treasure. Lorraine arrived when Lila was a month old. She wore jeans again. She knocked and waited, even though we'd told her to just come in. She washed her hands without being told and then asked, "May I?" I placed my daughter in her arms. Lorraine cried with her whole face, the way children do. She whispered a poem into Lila's hair, the one she'd sent us, written on a card in her tidy script. She sat in the rocker and rocked like she'd been practicing her whole life for this rocking. "I'm trying," she said suddenly, eyes on me. "It's like rewiring a house with the lights on. But I'm trying. I see you," I said. "Thank you." And I meant it, and that felt like a miracle too. We walked to the farmer's market together the next day. Our small parade. Me, Noah, the stroller, Lorraine in sneakers that squeaked, the rain pattering politely. We bought plums the color of bruises, a bunch of sunflowers so bright they hurt. People smiled at Lila the way strangers do, as if she had changed the weather. In a way, she had. We stopped at a booth where a woman with gray braids sold quilts. I ran my fingers across the seams, the tiny stitches that held it all together. "I like this," I said, and Lorraine said, "So do I." And for once, there was no argument hidden in the agreement. That night, after bath and milk and the long, slow descent into sleep, I stood on the balcony and looked at the city breathing. The mountains were dark-shouldered shadows. The rain had stopped but left everything shining, as if the world had been reset to its default setting, tender. Noah came to stand behind me, his chin on my shoulder, his hands on the railing where mine rested. Inside, Lorraine folded onesies with a precision that would have been dictatorial once, but now was simply love-given shape. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. The announcement. Leaving like we did. I thought about hydrangeas and elderflower water and a cake that bled pink like a secret made honest. I thought about my mother's face when she heard boisterous and pretended it didn't hurt. I thought about Grandma Lillian's cane tapping the ground like a gavel. I thought about how small the world was when you let other people build it for you, and how big it got when you started swinging your own hammer. "No," I said. "I regret not doing it sooner." He kissed my neck. "Me too." And then softer. "Thank you for telling me where the door was when I couldn't find it." "I'll always do that," I said. "And when I can't see either, we'll feel along the wall together." Inside, Lila hiccuped in her sleep and then sighed, a sound like a feather falling. Lorraine whispered a story about Noah at 5, insisting on sleeping with a helmet on for a week because he wanted to be a firefighter and needed to practice. I wanted to go listen. I wanted to learn, like she was trying to, how to love people the way they needed to be loved. When we flew back for Thanksgiving 4 months later, the air in Lorraine's house was different. There were still hydrangeas because hydrangeas are who she is, and the good plates, because of course. But there were also paper plates with hand turkeys drawn on them by Noah's cousin's kids. There was a playlist that had Motown on it, not as a joke but as a banger. There was a karaoke microphone sitting in the corner like a sleeping animal, waiting for Dad to wake it up. Lorraine greeted my parents with a hug that was 1 second longer than comfortable and 3 seconds longer than necessary, which made it almost perfect. She apologized again, clumsy and sincere. Mom nodded and told her the potato salad recipe. Dad quizzed the room about who wrote "Ain't Too Proud to Beg," and when Lorraine guessed wrong, she made a face and demanded a rematch later. While the men argued amiably about football and Jada taught Noah's teenage cousin how to do a winged eyeliner sharp enough to cut, Lorraine took me aside. "I have something for you," she said, and handed me an envelope. Inside was a list, long, careful, funny, of things she wanted Lila to know. The first page was full of family names and the reasons behind them. The second was songs. The third was stories, Noah losing a tooth while eating an apple and insisting the tooth fairy owed him hazard pay. The time she tried to sew a Halloween costume and glued the zipper to the carpet. The last page was one sentence, written in a shakier hand. I am learning to be the grandmother you need me to be. I looked at her. She looked at me. We nodded and I slipped the list into my bag like a passport. That night, Dad finally plugged in the karaoke machine. He handed Lila, plump now, hair like duck down, to Noah. Noah swayed with her as Dad asked, "Okay, who can name the year My Girl topped the charts?" 1965, Lorraine said promptly. Dad blinked at her. Then he grinned. Well, somebody's been studying? Someone sent me a playlist, she said dryly. I've been doing my homework. We sang. We ate too much pie. We argued about whether marshmallows belonged on sweet potatoes. They do not, but I love you if you say they do. We laughed until our ribs hurt. When I caught Lorraine's eye across the room, there was something soft there that felt like the afterglow of a storm. The world washed, the air easier to breathe. Later, when everyone had gone and the house had that quiet, exhausted feeling that comes after joy, Lorraine brought out cocoa in mugs I wasn't allowed to touch before. She watched me nurse Lila, watched her hand open and close against my skin like a starfish. Thank you, she said suddenly, for not giving up on me. I almost did, I said. I know. She took a breath. I would have deserved it. Maybe, I said. But this is better. She smiled then, small and real. Yes, she said. This is better. On the way home, Noah fell asleep on the plane again because some things never change. I watched Lila's mouth twitch with baby dreams, her eyelashes fluttering like she was testing flight. I thought of the day in the yard, the cake, the words that fell out of me like the truth they were. I thought of the move, the new city, the job, the people who had lifted our lives up and set them safely in a new place. I thought of how my daughter would grow up knowing that love could be big and messy and still be good if you kept choosing each other, kept choosing yourself, kept building the world you wanted to hand to her. In the dark, the city grew beneath us, lights pricking the black like 1,000 tiny hopes. I pressed my fingertip to Lila's palm, and she closed her hand around it with a surprising, fierce strength. Hi, I whispered. You're going to be a girl who knows how to say no. And yes, and enough. You're going to be a girl who tells the truth even when her voice shakes. You're going to be a girl who knows that home isn't a yard with hydrangeas or a kitchen with a karaoke machine. It's the people who love you and are willing to learn how to do it better. She sighed, and I smiled into the midnight. My ankles still swelled sometimes. My life still scared me sometimes. But on that plane, slicing the country I had promised to cross, with my family sleeping on either side of me, I felt something I hadn't felt since before the pink cake, and the sharp words and the old patterns broke and the new ones began. I felt free. The end.